Hello and welcome to Fantasy View with me, Jason Hubbard. Here I review fantasy novels to let you know what to read if it catches your fancy, and I let you know about the books I wrote myself. Well, after finishing the Phalan trilogy, I fell into a beer-induced coma, and during that time I read J.L. Bryang's freaky and funny Songs of Magic series. It's a story about fairies, and rock and roll, and daddy issues, and corporate franchises that try to copy Starbucks. Yes, dear listener, it's got everything. This review is about installments 3 through 6, which are called as follows: Faerie Struck, Fairy Land, Faerie Vision, and Fairy Luck. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go watch the latest episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, because after saying the word fairy so many times without cracking up, I feel it's the only dignified thing for me to do. In my reviews of the first 2 installments, I said that the series was very much like your typical CGI animated movie. But of course, not all such movies are the same. Since Songs of Magic has fairies and rock and roll, you might want to compare it to the Lucasfilm flick Strange Magic, which has fairies singing pop songs in a sickeningly saccharine fashion. In truth, I haven't seen the movie in its entirety, and if I never do, then I can die a happy man. The plot isn't important. What's important is that it has an art style that's both overly cute and creepy at the same time. And it takes classic pop songs and makes them so cutesy, you'll have a hard time keeping your lunch down while listening. There's also the movie Epic, about a teenage girl who shrinks in size and has an adventure in the invisible land of pixies. It's much better than Strange Magic, but I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, my point is that you shouldn't think Songs of Magic is like either of these movies. It's got clever wordplay, amusing satire, and a healthy dose of cynicism. You can draw comparisons to movies like Finding Nemo, Monsters, Inc., and Shrek. Which one? The good one. And you'd be on the right track. The story is about a teenager named Jason. I can only wish I was that young again. Who is a guitarist in a rock and roll band. One night he happens upon the fairy world and decides to steal a number of instruments that a folk band had carelessly left behind. The magic instruments turn into rock and roll counterparts, and not only does Jason's band start to play well with them, but they make hypnotizing music that captivates the nation, nay, the world. One thing that makes this story so enjoyable is the dynamic relationships among the band members. Jason, the guitarist, is a creative wise-ass who sometimes reminds me of Bugs Bunny for his ability to get out of hairy situations through witticisms and distractions. Erin, the singer, spelled E-R-I-N, is simply a nice girl who is so talented that she probably deserves to be in a better band. Her biggest flaw is not her daddy issues, though you might think so. It's the fact that she's been dating a total airhead for 3 years. Her boyfriend Zach is so shallow and stupid, you just want to scream at him, "Read a book sometime, you crazy bastard!" Dread, short for Mildred, is the drummer. She tends to be the snarky one, if only to keep Mitch, the keyboardist, in check. Mitch, with his giant ego, thinks the band belongs to him because he started it. It makes him kind of irritating, but at least he works hard for the band's initial success. Unfortunately, this involves driving the band to sign onto a mega corporation with a virtual slave contract. Just try asking Prince sometime about a contract like that. Oh, wait. And then there's the fairy band, whose instruments got stolen. They go on their own adventure to get back their instruments, and it's these adventures that most resemble a CGI animated movie. The fairy band doesn't have the kind of amusing dynamic as the other one, which is okay. One band shouldn't steal the other's thunder. And now, in 100 words or more, probably more, here are the plots for each book. In Faerie Struck, Jason's band start to go on tour in the US. Meanwhile, Aid, the singer of the fairy band, I can only hope I'm saying her name right, goes into Man World to seek the stolen instruments. Hilarity ensues as she's truly a fish out of water. In Fairy Land, Jason and Erin go to the land of fairy to look for something. Maybe someone, but I don't know for sure. Their descent into the fairy world is truly like Eddie Valiant going into Toontown. And Aid finally finds her instruments and a little something extra too. In Faerie Vision, the cartoon shenanigans are pulled back in favor of romance and adventure in exotic locations. Jason's band goes on tour in Japan and India, where they encounter location-specific fairy creatures who are working for Mad Queen Mob in order to get the magic instruments back. The Queen, by the way, is furious over magic instruments crossing into man world because she wants humans to remain unaware of the fairy world, which is understandable, but she's still a loon for other reasons. Abe's band also sign on to become big stars, and they soon learn the highs and lows of stardom as crazed fans simply won't leave them alone. The sixth installment, Fairy Luck, is actually pretty sad. I won't go into the plot, but after the ending of the last book, you will want to know what happens next if you have any romance in your heart. Whoa, that was kind of cheesy. Okay, yep, gotta say something cool. Some mother lovers are always trying to ski uphill. Nailed it! Of course, even though the book starts on a sad note, the author doesn't sacrifice the comedy, such as with Case, the band's executive producer, who is such a greedy opportunist he comes across as truly pathetic. And Grizzlemore, the goblin who was Jason's roadie for a while, returns to show off how disgusting and sometimes dense he is. And now I shall list a few of my favorite parts of the story, most of which made me chuckle. I'll keep story spoilers to a minimum, so you won't have to worry about those. Number 1. There's a satire of MTV called TV, which has a 19-year-old show host, and every other word she says is either like or totes. It took me a moment to realize that totes is short for totally, because apparently totally just has too many syllables to say. Even if that's not actually a real thing that kids today are saying, I can totally see it being a real thing. I can totes see it being a real thing. Number 2. There's a rap star named DJ Smooth Move who the band has to tour with. When the band first meets him, his manager says, "You may not speak directly to Mr. Smooth Move. You may not look at Mr. Smooth Move directly in the eyes." For a while, I kept imagining him looking like a Run DMC member, but he's actually a ginger. It turns out his background story is both touching and absolutely ridiculous. Number 3. There's a parody of the Backstreet Boys called The Dancing Boys. They have a hit song called Oh Girl Girl Girl, which is a song about a girl who is not all that thrilling. But the singer says, oh well, he may as well date her anyway. Number 4. A lot of food in the fairy world, food suitable for humans anyway, is chock full of sugar, and if you eat enough, you'll get a sweetness infection in which you break out in hives made out of cookie dough or peppermints or something. You'll also get a total personality change in which you say the sweetest, most lamest things possible. Seriously, try saying such things at a high school, and you will get an atomic wedgie. Number 5. Who knew that mermaids were so dangerous? One look at Ariel will jumpstart puberty in any growing boy. But some mermaids in the fairy world are notorious pirates who will kick you off your ship with the whap of their tails. And they have Jamaican accents.
But I don't want to be a pirate!
Number 6. In the 6th installment, the one that I said was pretty sad, someone comes across the biggest, most dangerous creature in all of fairy. And you will not believe, or even guess at, what kind of creature it is. Now, a word about the cover art for the series. The covers are all paintings done digitally in some way, and they are simply beautiful. Some of them have live models in a digital environment, and the results are very pleasing to the eye. Even so, the covers give little indication as to the tone and nature of the story. Songs of Magic is a rather cartoony story with just a touch of realism, but the artwork for the covers is so artsy-fartsy, you might think the story was more serious and snobby than what it really is. If the covers wanted to depict the story more accurately, they'd perhaps be cartoony scenes of some of the action sequences. On the other hand, such covers might not be as appealing to older readers, so it's a kind of catch-22. What do you think about this? I'd like to read your thoughts in the comments section down below. So the good news is that Songs of Magic is a series I can totally recommend, especially if you like things like Looney Tunes and My Little Pony. Aren't those some strange bedfellows? It's funny, zany, and heartwarming. It'll make you feel like a kid again, if you aren't one already. The bad news is that the 7th and final installment, Fairy Queen, hasn't been released yet. The author once wrote that he hoped to have it out by the end of 2014. It's now May of 2016, and I've seen that in the past year, the author's been busy making another series called Ghost Trapper. I have a nice big dent on my wall as I've been slamming my head into it, wondering what the holdup was. But as it just so happens, the author got back to me today on Twitter and said he doesn't know when the final installment will be out, but maybe it'll be next year. That's good. I'll need a nice diversion when Trump becomes president. I'm Jason Hubbard. Thanks for listening to Fantasy View, and please, keep reading.